ash, I know there stands. Yggdrasil is its name, a tall tree showered with shining loam. From there come the dews that drop in the valleys. It stands forever green over Earth's well. But let's talk about that great cosmic space tree, Yggdrasil, the skeleton and scaffolding that holds the 9 realms in place, connective tissue for all things. You know me, I love to get an imaginary t-shirt gun and shoot imaginary thought seeds into the imaginary crowd. Venture out and explore, and poke and experiment with our lore. I imagine it all as an enormous and incredibly damaged tapestry, pinned to an unimaginably large wall. Some sections are whole, they're a bit patchy here and there. Some of it has been repaired, mostly poorly. The thready equivalent of Monkey Jesus, obscuring the original image underneath. A lot of it is missing, torn away, edges falling away limply, frayed. Likely, to be honest, it never was whole to begin with. Not cohesive and uniform, but a patchwork of various styles and inspirations, thick with revisions and reworking over generations and across its entire breadth. Many of us are trying to look at the whole. Some of us are analyzing a couple of threads or a specific segment. Others like to imagine what those empty spaces might have contained and how they helped complete the piece. There's freedom in this tapestry, space for interpretation and obsessions of rabbit holes and centuries upon centuries of analysis. But ultimately, it's fitting that a tree represents the epitome of life within heathenry. Something vibrant, living, and thriving, something natural and invigorating. It's fitting too that the stories around the creation of humans involves being formed from pieces of driftwood. We're a part of this world, even if we sometimes get a little lost on the way. But humans too are described as trees in the Eddic poems and sagas. Warriors are described as the trees of battle, while one warrior is called a battle tree, or the Hjalmruna, helmet tree, Ignir Drauga Brimis, the thoughtful trees of the sword, or Randvitha, shield rim trees, or spear trees, or sword trees, and so on. A generous man may be called a tree of wealth. Seafarers may be called trees of the ship, or trees of the wave steed, or trees of the keel beast. There's some 600 examples of humans being described as trees, and still there could be more. What we can say is that there are quite literally hundreds of such examples in the literature. And of course, that's putting aside that a singular tree could be a sacred thing indeed in the pre Christian Germanic world, with similar ideas across multiple cultures around the world. The axis mundi, the pillar of the world or universe. This is something we see frequently across various mythologies. On a local level, a tree was often the center of local worship, a sacred place. And Yggdrasil is this idea made colossal and expansive. Like their Midgardian counterpart, Yggdrasil is also the home to cosmic animals that graze on its leaves and roots, while others live in its canopy and scamper across its branches and down its trunk. The imagery naturally continues from there. If Yggdrasil holds the realms aloft and within, then all realms are connected through the tree. And so are we to the realm of the gods, the Vanir, the Alfar, the Jotun, and to Niflheim. Yggdrasil acts as a nexus of information, of communication and exchange. You can quite easily imagine then Odin offering himself to himself and hanging from Yggdrasil for 9 nights, staring down at its roots and into the Urtabruna at the very bottom, learning the secrets of the runes carved into the tree and exposing himself to the secrets of the universe. The past, present, and potential future, literally gazing on the Norni's work with apparent clarity. Of course, I'm a fan of following threads to see where they lead. And in this, let's ponder on the mechanics and logistics, if you will, of Yggdrasil in connection to the realms and in movement, realm travel, and the multi-part soul. Because why are the Norns at the bottom of the tree? Why are the wells situated below the tree or below specific roots? Where are the realms in relation to each other? Because we don't know. There are no clear story didn't describe where the realms were in relation to each other. But does this matter in the grand scheme of things? And why is Yggdrasil a tree? What can we infer from that chosen form? Maybe Idun plucks her apples from Yggdrasil itself as life incarnate. But yes, we can possibly infer that information, knowledge, the weight of experience and existence is filtered from the realms through the branches and down to the roots of Erd as well at the very, very bottom, where knowledge flows like water dripping. Water flows too into Fergelmire in Hell's realm, where Nidhogger gnaws from the root there, and Mimisbruna in Jotunheim. But these roots also feed the tree in turn, and here perhaps we can see how the Norns interact with the possible future, recording the present, carving runes into the roots to inspire future growth and potential events. We see a cycle here, a continuing cycle of information, of weird being formed and reinforced and reformed time and time again. We can potentially also see the rationale here too when it comes to three specific routes that extend to three realms: Midgard, Jotunheim, and Hell's realm. Now, I will say that, as is obligatory, Snorri did confuse things here and claims another route is among the Aesir in Gylfaginning in the Prose Edda. The route being in Midgard is taken from Gryndismal in the Poetic Edda, so we're going with that one. In the Waking of Agantia, Hervor describes the nature of burial and the world of the dead as beneath the roots of a tree. Maybe this is echoing or indeed continuing the idea of Hell too being beneath the roots, or a particular roots of Yggdrasil, below the cosmic ground level and hidden away. Perhaps then the position of these roots too can go some way to describe why the Jotun and our human selves seem so close to death, or so capable of death compared to those that dwell in other realms, as connected as we are with a potential afterlife. This might go some way to unite the connections between animals and realm travel, with why the Valkyries must intervene to ensure a soul goes to Valhalla or Volkvanger. Perhaps we are all destined to flow down to Hell's realm. The Valkyries with their swan coats, or indeed Ran, don't snatch or ensnare us before we reach the precipice. We need someone to fly to push against the current, or indeed to pull us further down to the depths of the sea, away from Yggdrasil's natural flow. Maybe then this is also why Odin travels to Hell to gather insight from the dead. Knowledge flows down there, down at the bottom of Yggdrasil. Souls or parts of souls, the Huga, gather there from all places, and one only needs to know how to speak to the dead. But Odin knows a rune to do such a thing. Maybe the Hamingyar travels further, alongside the Fylgja to be passed on to ancestors, passing through Erda's Bruna and sealed into the future weave, creating a rough infrastructure for Orlog and thrown back into the world of the living to live and travel again, recycled as we see in reality. A cycle, something like a hollow magnetic field pulling things in and down before cycling back to the beginning. We've touched on the connection between animals and traveling within the lore in the past. We have Ratatosk, the messenger that travels between realms and the space between realms, a liminal creature that exists in the known and the unknown. Hailing the branches of Yggdrasil, build the grace and dexterity of the squirrels that play in our Midgardian gardens and forests. Ratatoska gathers information, passes messages between the eagle and Yggdrasil's canopy and Nidhogger down below. We have Freya, donning a falcon cloak to move between realms, with her chariots pulled by cats, or Hildisvini the boar, or Thor's chariots pulled by goats. Of Odin becoming an eagle to carry the mead of poetry, or his ravens Hugin and Munin flying along Yggdrasil's length, search for more wisdom and insight to bring to their master. Of Sleipnir, of Fenrir loosed from his chains and running rampant across the realms. Of Thiazi giving chase as an eagle too. Of our travelling Fylgja, seemingly unhindered and unencumbered by the weight of worlds blocking their path. Viking Age heathens probably understood this idea too. If we are to take the sacrifice of birds during funerary rites and the offerings of bird eggs, specifically raven eggs, with its obvious connection to Odin, but also potentially to this idea of aiding the past individual to travel to their afterlife, potentially anchoring parts of this deceased soul to that of the birds. We can only guess at their specific reasoning. But to go back to the importance of the Nornir in relation to Yggdrasil, Karen Beck Peterson in the Norns in Old Norse mythology puts forward an enticing idea around the idea of Orlogthatu or Orlogsima, the fate thread, and how the Norns interact with them. There's a ton of academic discussion around this idea, with some stating that the Norns are shown or implied to be weaving, and others say they are spinning these threads. Beck Peterson suggests that what we see the Norns doing is rather combining, plying these threads. We have this symbolism of three threads tucked into various corners in Helgak Fitha Hundingsbana, three threads that are too many for spinning and too few for weaving. But it's the perfect amount for plying, spinning the thread with others to stabilize it. Now you may be asking, what the heck is the relevance of this to Yggdrasil? Well, Henning Kure in 2010 and Beck Peterson connects this image of a twisted piece of thread to Yggdrasil. Quote, "The world tree with the three roots stretching out each in their direction below ground. But above ground, all three strands come together in one tree trunk. Three roots that make one tree, three Nornir representing one fate." You can maybe get a bit more into the weeds with this sort of analogy and think about how the roots may reflect the Norns themselves, the past influencing the present, reflecting on a possible future. With Midgard being our present, Hel being our future, and Jotunheim being some sort of representation of the past. It's a bit messy, but I'll leave that there. It's this sort of comparison that I love, and I feel often gets the brain juices swirling. Because ultimately, there's a lot of potential in understanding the heathen perspective of life, death, and everything else through analyzing the image of Yggdrasil. We're trying to find how things might interact or connect with each other, like the branches of the tree itself. We're all connected in one way or another.